Venom is a lot of people's favorite Spider-Man villain, not Sam Raimi's, but a lot of other people's. His popularity in the comics was so staggeringly high at one point that attempts to get a Venom movie made went on for much longer than they might have expected. While most people assume the production of Venom began in the late 2000s after Spider-Man 3, the truth is it actually started way back in 1997. So, what if Venom had been made in 1997? In the late 90s, the rights for Venom and Carnage were actually not owned by Sony, but by New Line Cinema. When Sony purchased the rights to Spider-Man, they were actually sold separately from Venom and Carnage, who were in turn swept up by New Line. Now, New Line was hoping to hop onto the Marvel bandwagon, having already purchased the rights to another Dark Marvel character in Blade. And speaking of Blade, the Venom movie that New Line planned to do would have actually been written by David S. Goyer, the same man who would go on to work on the Blade trilogy, as well as the Dark Knight trilogy and Man of Steel. Now, this version would have seen Eddie Brock, aka Venom, be played by Dolph Lundgren, most famous for his role as Ivan Drago in Rocky IV, as well as his more infamous roles as the Punisher in He-Man. Now, for some odd reason, his name actually would have been spelled differently. I don't get it either. I really don't understand that. So now, this movie would see no attachment whatsoever to Spider-Man, and his story would revolve around Venom just being an anti-hero who learns to protect New York City while fighting against a much more dangerous symbiote named Carnage, who would have been serial killer Cletus Cassidy as usual. Now, the symbiotes themselves actually would have crash-landed on Earth from a distant planet inhabited by giant spiders, which would have been used to explain why he has a spider insignia on his chest, even though Spider-Man's not involved in this movie. Now, despite these changes, Eddie Brock was still meant to be a news reporter who just so happens to be at the wrong place at the wrong time when he bonds with the Venom symbiote. Although instead of the Daily Bugle, he would have actually worked at the Daily Weekly instead, because that's such a big difference. And instead of J. Jonah Jameson, he would have been working for basically the exact same goddamn character, except his name would be Bitterman instead. Now, Eddie actually would have been an orphan who went to the same orphanage as Cletus, and the movie actually apparently would have begun with Cletus setting fire to a hospital and nearly killing Eddie with a shiv. Now, the reason for this movie not getting made is actually not known. Maybe the special effects weren't up to snuff yet, maybe New Line got cold feet about doing a Venom movie without Spider-Man, I don't know. Either way, New Line ultimately let the rights go to Sony, who finally put Venom on the big screen with Spider-Man 3 in 2007, and it was so great. And then they did 2 standalone movies in 2018 that was just the best movie ever, and then another in 2021, with the third one now apparently on the way. I'm not sure about that, though. So now, do I think this movie would have worked? Honestly, and I'm really sorry to be harsh on Dolph Lundgren fans, but no. Like, I like him. I never hated Dolph Lundgren, but I'm not gonna lie, because he's gotten better at acting now, but in the 80s and 90s, man, I'm sorry, that guy could not act. And he seems like a nice guy from what I can tell. And he's definitely got the look for it. Like, he honestly looks a lot like Eddie Brock does in the comics from what I can tell. And so I do imagine he would get this down from a physical perspective, but, I do think this is a character that needs a lot of, nuance. You really need to care about this guy that has to fight with this, evil thing that's inside of him now, also dealing with regular daily struggles in his life. I think that Tom Hardy was perfect for that. He did an amazing job with what he was given. The Venom movies are not that good. Venom, Let There Be Carnage was thankfully a lot better than the first one. But, neither of them are as good as they could have been. And I actually think this one might have been a little better if they just changed the lead. Like, legitimately, my only issue with this movie is the lead. I honestly think the rest of the movie sounds good. David S. Goyer writing? The guy has a lot of talent. As I said, he worked on the Dark Knight trilogy, one of the greatest movie trilogies of all time. He worked on the Dark Knight, one of the greatest movies of all time. And, you can't deny that sounds awesome. And, then there's the fact that if this movie movie had been made, he would have beaten Spider-Man to the big screen, which is just crazy to think about. It's crazy to think that we almost lived in a world where Venom possibly would be a more popular movie character than Spider-Man. And yeah, I mean, I understand why it took so long to get a Venom movie made. Like, it never really felt the right time, but I also appreciate the fact that they stuck with it. You know, New Line was trying it, and then Sony tried it too. And, you know, they started working on it in 2007, and they didn't get it made till 2018. And, you know, they never gave up. You know, even after the Raimi movies ended, then they tried it again with, you know, The Amazing Spider-Man, and then it failed again. And then they did it again. And, you know, you got to admire their work ethic to try and get a Venom movie made. And I understand why. I mean, Venom is such an iconic character, and he really did have so much potential for his own movie. And while I do admit that the 2018 Venom was really disappointing, I don't think it's that bad. Like, it's not the worst superhero movie in the world. I always thought 30% Rotten Tomatoes was a little harsh. But I do admit it could have been better. I definitely think Venom has potential to do a really good movie. And thankfully, Let There Be Carnage, while still not that great, was a lot better than the first one. So hopefully they keep this trajectory going and Venom 3 is like a really, really good movie. That's what I'm hoping. But as far as the Dolph Lundgren Venom movie, I would have liked it as long as it wasn't Lundgren. I'm sorry. He looks the part, he does, and I don't hate him. It's just, he doesn't feel right, you know? He feels like a name that Hollywood chose, not a name that, you know, they picked because they actually thought he would be good at it, if that makes sense. So yeah, no disrespect to Dolph Lundgren or his fans. I like Dolph Lundgren, I do. It's just, I just don't see it. I'm really, really sorry. I try to keep an open mind, but I just can't see it. Now, as far as the special effects goes, I do think that they would have been up to snuff. I mean, they wouldn't have looked that good, because again, it was 1997 when they started doing this, and I mean, I'm estimating that the movie probably would have come out in 1999 or 2000, and CGI wasn't that good yet, but it wasn't that bad either. I do admit the symbiote would have been hard to CGI back then because of its fluidity. You know, they had a hard time making solid things look convincing. I mean, they could have used practical effects. Honestly, as anybody who watches my videos knows, I'm a huge Guillermo del Toro fan. He would have been a great choice to do this. And I am a little bit sad that we never got a Venom movie a long time ago, because I think that Venom had a lot of potential a long time ago, and he still has a lot of potential now. So fingers crossed that Venom 3 doesn't suck. Well, anyway, guys, let me know in the comments down below. Would you have liked to see this Dolph Lundgren-led Venom movie, or are you glad that we got the Tom Hardy one that we did? Also, give me more what-if recommendations in the comments down below, whether it's about Venom, Spider-Man, Marvel, or whatever the hell else you can think of. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with all of your friends on all your various social media platforms, and I'll see all of you in the next video.